call, please.
Herzog?
Here.
Carnes?
Here.
Szilagyi?
Here.
Wright?
Here.
Wyman?
Here.
Carlin?
Here.
DeWitt?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Marvelous. And now we have some students from South Park that will be presenting the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank you both so much. Thank you so much for your presentation, for being part of the meeting tonight. It's all for you. Allison, thank you so much. And for you. You're very welcome. Thank you again for coming. And now we would like to hear highlights from South Park Middle School from Mr. Pitch.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening,
So, Joe Pitch, for those who don't know me, I'm at South Park. So, with literacy this year, really our main focus has been around building our capacity of our staff, specifically within our literacy department, and really regrounding in our standards. And what we did was we looked at standards from 4th grade up through 8th grade, and really looking at the progression and rigor when it came to understanding those specific things, so we can give quality feedback to our kids. So we met monthly and really just pulled for half days to be able to spend the time in collaboration with our staff to allow those conversations to happen, to really increase that learning. And we did that with our literacy staff, but then also with our special education staff to figure out how do we break those barriers down for our kids and really allow them access to that curriculum. So that has been our main work within our specific literacy department. And then as a whole school, we did work around disciplinary literacy. Really, how do we allow kids to read, write, and think within that specific content area? So we did a lot of work around academic language within tech education class. And what does that mean to be able to do those specific tasks? And how do you think and read and write from that context? So it really just empowers our teachers to become literacy teachers as well and continue that work forward. And I think it really paid off when we look at how our kids grew this school year. So in the fall, we had about 26% of our students that were proficient, and through our spring already we're at 40%. So we made really good growth this year, and that comes back to that building within our literacy department, but then also all of the work that all of the teachers do along the way, because we all have an impact within the school to be able to support our students. So I'm very excited about the growth we've had. Even from last spring, we're at 35%, we're at 40% this year. So just continuing that track, just to really continue to support our students here. So very excited about the work we've done and looking forward to the work we're going to continue to do next year. So
That's marvelous.
Great.
that's great.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Pitch.
The land acknowledgement.
Yes, as we gather today, we would like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we're on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake, entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship in these lands.
Thank you very much. Next up is the approval of the agenda. Hearing nothing?
I don't know if this is the right time or not. Again, this is all new to me, but would now be the time to ask for an item to be pulled under the consent agenda?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I would ask to have number 7, E and F, along with number 8, E and G pulled, please.
E and F and 8, say it again, Kelly?
E and G, please.
E and G. Okay. We will do that. Thank you very much. Board and administrative reports. First is the board president report. Mr. Wright, I'm going to just hand this to you if you want to just pass it around.
Thank you.
I had the opportunity to represent Oshkosh at a rally for Fox Cities Advocates for Public Education, and Dr. Herzog was also in attendance. This group is a nonpartisan group, the issue-oriented advocacy group, which really focuses on public education, the opportunities that we have to be able to educate each and every child. They advocate for public policies that will improve our schools and attract the best educators and generate support for public education through community events. There were 14 speakers. I won't name all the 14 speakers, but they included Mary Pfeiffer, who was Superintendent of the Year from NENA, and Todd Tim, the superintendent from Hortonville, and school board presidents from NENA, Menasha, Appleton, special ed teachers, retired teachers, and parents representing Discovery League athletes. And really the purpose of the rally was to raise awareness of the funding gaps that exist for our public schools. I personally spoke about the crossroads that we are at, that we want to offer equity in education, but many times don't have the resources to do so. And this is especially true in the area of special ed, literacy, and math. And resources are also needed to keep our salaries competitive with non-teaching job in the marketplace. And currently our funding rate, very few people know it, is 28% from the state, and it's one of the lowest in the country. There were several legislators that were in attendance, and we hope that this news gets back to Madison. And if you'd like to learn more about this advocacy group, you can go to their Facebook page. It's called Fox Cities Advocates for Public Education. And I'm passing around a brochure just telling a little bit more about the event that night.
So I have a question. When you said our funding's at 28%, that's
State funding.
special education funding, correct?
Yeah.
If they only,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you said that website, Beth, was Fox Valley,
Fox Cities
sorry,
Advocates for Public Education.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Retirement recognition. We have a few retirees to speak of tonight. The first one is Ruth Cottrell, cross-categorical teacher assistant at Roosevelt, and she's been with the district since 1998. William Schuerman, science teacher, Webster Stanley Middle School, been with the district since 2003. And Carol Tritt, food service assistant cook at North, and she has been with the district since 2017. Would anyone like to add anything about any of our retirees? Yes.
I would just like to add, once again, we're losing some really quality people, and we're grateful for the contributions they've made over the years for our students, their families, and our staff, and certainly wish them well in this next stage of life.
Absolutely. We were very excited to be able to celebrate so many of the retirees a week or so ago. It was a wonderful send-off for so many of the people that have given so much to our district. Okay. And superintendent's report.
All right, great. A lot of good news to share with the community related to the end of our year here in May. So I want to start out at Carl Traeger Elementary School. We recently had a one-day residency with Copperbox, a local polka, rock, and blues quartet. Members of the band worked with kindergarten through 5th grade students talking about folk music and the history of folk music in Wisconsin and around the world. The students formed percussion ensembles, sang various folk songs and dances, and ended the residency with an all-school assembly. So it's great to have them part of our school community. The Communities at Oshkosh North program, along with Mid-Morning Kiwanis, hosted their 8th annual spaghetti dinner event. It was staffed entirely by volunteers, including students, Kiwanis members, and other community members. The funds raised go directly towards the Communities program to ensure that all students engaged in the program can continue to make a difference in the community. So thank you for everyone who volunteered there. Oshkosh North Junior and Horticulture 2 student Kai Godwin helped to transform the planters outside Jefferson Elementary School. Kai was assisted by her agriculture instructor, Kim Pruss. We appreciate the pride of students and staff, the pride that they take in our schools and willingness to give their time and talents, and the planters are beautiful. So thank you for that hard work. It was recently Disney Day at Mrs. Crab's room in Jefferson Elementary. Fourth graders were waiting all year for this special day where they got to use their map skills to travel through the Disney parks and budget their money to spend at the park gift shops. Students had Magic Pass wristbands to enter the classrooms, Mickey ears to wear for fun, and park tickets to keep as keepsakes for the fun-filled day. It's great to see so many of our school communities participating in Walk or Bike to School Day. Earlier this week, there were smiles all around at Oakwood Elementary. Students started their day by getting it moving. I personally had the pleasure to ride with some students on their bikes, along with mine, and joining in the fun as well. So it was a great day, and a ton of kids out at Oakwood Elementary, and I know at some other schools regarding this event. So thanks everyone for participating. Oshkosh North senior Matthew Sentner recently addressed a packed ballroom at Monona Terrace in Madison as he was awarded one of 4 scholarships from G-Safe Wisconsin for his advocacy on behalf of marginalized communities. The applicant pool was incredible, and Matthew rose to the very top. Great job, Matthew, and thank you for your advocacy. Reed Elementary School hosted its final rocket rally of the school year with a unique twist to celebrate the school's ongoing community-driven playground fundraising project. Highlights included staff getting duct tape to the wall, teachers getting blind makeovers, and the school principal getting pied in the face. During the rally, the school community learned that in just 3 weeks, over $50,000 was raised to support the playground project, thanks in the generosity from Reed families, individual donors, local businesses, and community partners. We're excited to see this project come to life this summer, connecting the Reed community to the neighborhood in an amazing way. So thanks to everyone who was involved in that. I also had the pleasure of being part of the Oshkosh Early Learning Center's Donuts with Dudes event last Friday. It was great fun in the afternoon, being able to be part of the conversations with our youngest learners. So. Also, over the last couple of weeks, we had joined the Oshkosh community and supporters from near and far to celebrate our graduations at Oshkosh North and Oshkosh West for the class of 2023, as well as graduates from the Riverside Alternative Program and Project Search Program. We're so proud of all those graduates and know their impact in the world will be great. Congratulations and best of luck to the class of 2023. We also had a fantastic celebration for our retirees and our 25-year employees. Our people are amazing, and we recently celebrated, that was a 39th annual event that we celebrated with our retirees in recognition. Special shout outs to our 62 incredible retiree employees, 24 dedicated employees with 25 years of service, and Friends of Education recipients, Chuck Gallipo, and the Boys and Girls Club of Oshkosh. We wish all the retirees the best of luck in their next chapter of life, and we want to thank the incredible 25 years of service employees for their dedication and continued contribution to our district. And finally, just a list of events that I've been fortunate enough to be part of over the last 3 weeks. So again, want to thank everyone in the community for welcoming me and continuing to be part of our school district. So that concludes our Superintendent's Good News Report for tonight.
Thank you very much. Next, we have District Administrator Supplemental Reports, starting with Dr. Gunluck.
Good evening, everybody. Reporting out from the listening session on May 10th. We had a couple of individuals who joined us for the listening session. They were very interested in accessing forward exam data as well as behavior data about their particular students. We let them know that information is accessible to any parent who wishes to see it through Infinite Campus, or they can request a report as well from their school. They also asked about how district-wide suspension and expulsion data of various groups can be accessed, and Dr. Davis explained that we are releasing that information on a set schedule more often than just annually. So that was something that they were interested in hearing as well. And the third question was about the RISE program and where it is accessible. It is a successful program between Webster and Merrill currently. It will be obviously moving to Bell Phillips next year and transitioning to North High School as well. So that was the report from the listening session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Next, we have Social Emotional Learning, ES3 Grant Report. And Ms. Piron is presenting. Would you
Good
like to-
evening. Good evening, everyone. With me, I have Jean Manicki, who is our Social Emotional Learning Coordinator for the district. Just updating you, the grant that we received a year ago. We're in the end of our second year here. We're really excited about the evidence-based practices that we're using for students with IEPs who have social emotional learning needs, some that go above and beyond. We know that all kids do have needs, but really targeting this group of students with IEPs. We've used our funds to create some really nice staff development opportunities for our teachers based in best practice, and we've gotten some pretty great feedback and results and have seen some nice student results.
Marvelous.
Excellent. Questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I've heard a lot of good feedback in the community as well. Someone who's worked with people with disabilities for the past 15 years, I often get to interact with their families, and they share stories about the successes that are happening in the schools, and I really appreciate the work that you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question. What's happening next year? Are you going to build on what you've
So we
succeeded with
haven't,
this year?
we are embedding the Elena Aguilar Coaching for Equity, specifically looking at that, and then also building emotional resilience in educators will be the focus. We are moving along with Jean and her team of behavior ISTs in the district, spreading the training out, the Elena Aguilar Coaching for Equity. We're training all of them this summer, completing the training for them, and then moving on to emotional resilience, like for our PSTs to support special educators and our behavior ISTs, and just kind of broadening that scope.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's exciting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kemmerer, Student Wellness Policy and Report.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
So the wellness report that was filed with the board is actually a requirement that's embedded within our wellness policy, which is 8510. And it's probably one of our longer and more complex policies that's filled with a lot of requirements that are under state and federal law. So part of this annual report covers the requirements through state statutes as well. So in order to come up with the information in that report, we actually convened a wellness committee. And that was made up of not only district staff, but community partners and parents. And it was publicly noticed, so anybody could have attended. And at that meeting, we kind of dissected the policy and made sure that we're able to comply with the requirements that were in there. So as a part of that, the committee that came together had a number of recommendations. So one of the requirements that is a part of that policy is we have to assess implementation of the policies throughout each one of our schools in the district. And you know, the schools that had representation at that committee meeting were able to speak on their implementation of the policy, but not every school was represented. So one of the suggestions from that committee was to survey all of our building principals to get a better feel for if the components in that wellness policy were actually being satisfied within our schools. So along with that, they recommended that we also send a questionnaire out to our district curriculum health coordinator, who could then talk with our physical education teachers throughout the district to make sure those requirements within our policy were also being met. And then finally, sending a questionnaire to food services to make sure that those parts were being met as well. So along with that, some of the other recommendations from the committee were for the district to continue to monitor the childhood obesity guidelines. It sounds like those may be changing in the near future. To continue to find ways to support students who come to school hungry. To make sure our wellness policy guidelines are put into our HR training that all staff members are required to take at the beginning of the year. And then also when the committee reconvenes in fall, that we take a closer look at specific guidelines around foods that are sold at school that aren't a part of food service, but then also that are part of our fundraisers within the buildings. So, are there any questions related to the report?
Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Mr. Kemmerer, Fox Valley Technical College Riverside Program Contract.
Yeah, so last week, or last board meeting, those who tuned in were able to hear a little bit more about some of our alternative education offerings, and Riverside was one of the programs that was highlighted. It's probably our most popular alternative education program. It's a partnership with Fox Valley Technical College, and each year the contract in order to run that program comes up. So the board needs to approve the contract. The costs that are associated with Riverside aren't set by Fox Valley Technical College, and that's one of the points I really want to make sure is clear. The cost is determined by state statute. So each year, as you'll see within the report, there's a fixed amount that programs like the Riverside program have to charge school districts in order to run that program. So the cost is a little bit more than it was last year, but again, that's determined by state statute, not Fox Valley Technical College.
Interesting. Very. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kimmer?
I just want to say I'm very happy about this program. It emerged out of a program years ago that was a trial program, as it were. It was located at what used to be the Eagles Club, is now the Howard. And it serves students who, for whatever reason, are not successful in our two comprehensive high schools. And without this program, our graduation rate would be impacted. And more importantly, or as importantly, the lives of these students are impacted along with those of their families and the community. So I salute everyone who's involved in this program, because it has made a positive difference in the lives of many of our students over these last 12 plus years. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we will have committee reports, starting off with the Education Committee.
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Kant.
So we met on Thursday, May 4th. And usually I don't read through the whole thing, but tonight I think I'm just going to kind of read through this. So 2 items on the agenda at that meeting. First was an elementary math update. In classroom observations this year, the highest achieving classrooms had fully implemented curriculum, teachers who were ready to teach with tools that were provided, and deliberate questions. This year was the second year for student-centered coaching cycles, understanding the big picture of equitable math teaching, and understanding grade level standards for math and how they are connected. We continue to do classroom observations and walkthroughs with principals to help build administrator capacity to give feedback to teachers. The plan for the future includes continuing to build understanding around equitable math teaching by leveraging student-centered coaching and continuing to take action text. Digging deeply into grade level standards for math, continuing classroom observations and walkthroughs. Perfect. What is new? Building conceptual understanding, not new material. It is important to always lead with understanding of why and then build an algorithm. Kids are being strategic and can be doing math in their heads. Just doing monthly checks and update on assessments will be important to seeing where kids go. And along with literacy, math is our next most important topic, so that was interesting. Second one on the agenda is curriculum adoptions. These are on the agenda for tonight's meeting. So Julie Conrad had gone through 3 adoptions that are being recommended for tonight. First one is, make sure I'm going through this. Yep. Okay, the one with the longest conversation was on the social studies. Its teacher-created initiative was chosen as the recommendation for the social studies curriculum materials. The district had previously used McGraw-Hill, and its contract with them ended in August of 2022. A 1-year extension was board approved as new resources continued to be explored. TCI provides inquiry-based instruction, both student and teacher-driven, easy to implement curriculum and flexible instruction modes, tools to meet the needs of all students, multiple assessment modes and opportunities, increased teacher flexibility with variety that will assist in keeping students interested. The inquiry-based instruction allows students to learn through exploration, investigation, and questioning, which in turn promotes critical thinking skills, increases engagement, develops communication skills, fosters a deeper understanding, and aligns with real-world learning as students will be able to see themselves in areas of history. It's important to teach kids how to think and not what to think in order to build critical thinkers and engaged citizens. I'll read that one more time. It is important to teach kids how to think and not what to think in order to build critical thinkers and engaged citizens. The district's maps are currently 15 years old, so the social studies materials adoption will include printed atlases for hands-on experience, which seems to be easier for students to have a paper copy rather than online-only access. It is also important for students to have map reading skills if the internet is down. So the TCI materials provide guidance for teachers on how to prepare and teach lessons, and there are options for teaching and assessing, which can be helpful because it can be done self-paced if a student is not present. Cost for the teaching materials, about $53,000. Student materials, about $173,000. Professional learning inquiry, $138,000. This dollar amount is included in the budget as there is a set line item used yearly. The other two items, business curriculum, and then the last one is family consumers sciences curriculum adoptions, which is also included on here as well. And they're all included for tonight, so. A lot of good things on that meeting, and we meet again tomorrow morning at 7:30. So, thank you.
Thank you for a great report.
Thank you.
Facilities and Finance Committee.
That would be me.
Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. We met on Thursday, May 18th, 2023. We had a full agenda. We began with an update on recycling at each school site. I just lost that, just a second. Okay. Mr. Nehans from the business department provided an update on the current recycling at each school site as well as food service sites. Every school has trash and recycle bins in every room. However, not every building is recycling the milk cartons from the lunchroom. So an effort will be made to re-educate those school sites regarding recycling of the milk cartons. There was also input from HR Director, Human Resources Director Sabrina Johnson on elimination of annualization for hourly new hires, which will begin on July 1st of this year. This will allow us to overcome some misunderstandings that the previous procedure has caused. By eliminating the process, it will reduce those misunderstandings with employees' pay. And there will be a conversation with current employees to educate them on the benefits of making this switch. Support staff pay for inclement weather days was also discussed. Ms. Johnson provided information that she had reached out to peer school districts and found that 2 of them follow the same process that we do, and 2 of them pay the employees for the days that they are out. We're talking about paraprofessionals primarily, food service, and custodial maintenance workers. The recommendation is that the district will pay the paraprofessionals and the food service employees for the days affected beyond the scheduled weather days, and the maintenance and custodial workers who would be issued a vacation day since they are unable to be off due to snow removal and other responsibilities at the building. We had a very good report from the food service update provided by Michelle Stammen and Nicole Howard. Over the last school year, food service has experimented with various foods and ways to increase participation. Food service provided over 2,328 breakfasts and 4,335 lunches across the district every day. A grab-and-go lunch program has been up and running at Oshkosh North, which serves 700 students per day instead of 300. Also, by offering breakfast sandwiches at North, the food service department was able to double the quantity of breakfasts served. The current struggle is lack of space, making storage of food difficult, which reduces the food options available. There have been concerns regarding the sugary breakfast cereals being served. However, we learned that the product the district serves is different from what would be purchased at the local grocery store. The cereal the district receives is whole grain as well as low sugar. And they're looking to perhaps use some storage space at the new Val Phillips, at least on the north side. We also discussed the reforestation plan for the school forest at Sheldon Woods. The board may remember that previously we had talked about having a contractor go in and remove the ash trees. However, the freeze of this last winter was not deep enough, and so the tree removal service was not able to gain access, or they would have caused more damage to the site. So, believe it or not, they're hoping for a deeper freeze this coming winter, so stay tuned. There was also a budget update. We learned from Mr. Nehans that the budget is still under review and no updates are available at this time. And Dr. Davis provided an update on the topic of the city busing program. It was noted that Dr. Davis and City Manager Mark Roloff had recently discussed the current 3-year contract, which comes to an end this June. The consensus was to continue the program while continuing to work on safety and discipline issues. Once the final agreement is made, it will be brought to the board for discussion and approval. So hopefully that will be in June, and that service can continue over the summer. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 15th at 7:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a full meeting.
It was.
And next up is Legislative Committee. Dr. Herzog?
Actually, I wasn't there. I was in
Okay.
Madison that day,
All
so
right. Mrs. Carlin.
Mrs. Carlin is the one.
Yes, and Dr. Herzog is the chair of this committee, but she was unable to make the meeting on Tuesday, May 23rd. It was called to order at 9 a.m. We had a follow-up and an update from Dr. Davis regarding Senator Fayen's visit to Emmeline Cook Elementary School on May 1st. Principal Mike Rural had invited Mr. Fayen during the day at the Capitol visit. It provided a great opportunity for Fayen to see multiple classrooms in action. He did a first grade class, a phonics class, and took questions from 5th grade students. He also took time to talk to teachers, the principal, and Dr. Davis about what they are working on and asked how COVID dollars were used. Of course, we did ask Senator Fayen about the budget, and he said it is too early in the process, but felt that there was some progress on per pupil funding, and he was supportive of special education funding. We will continue to reach out to our legislators, and Dr. Davis is scheduling meetings as we speak, I'm sure. I believe Representative Palmieri attended Project Search graduation this week. So
Yes.
that's great. The next meeting is June 27th, and I had put a future agenda item as to maybe get some clarity on the goals of this committee. When we first formed this committee, we were very focused on voucher transparency, and we've since kind of, I'm not going to say given up, but maybe moved on from getting voucher information placed in our tax bill. That's was one of our goals, and I do not believe we will be able to fulfill that. So I just put a future agenda item as maybe talk about what we want to accomplish and get some goals. I'm excited for fresh leadership on this committee from Dr. Herzog.
Thank you, and thank you for your report.
Okay, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Policy and Governance.
Also me. Okay, the Policy and Governance Committee met on Tuesday, May 23rd at 7:30 a.m. in the district office. We reviewed 27 policies, and I will now go over each policy in detail. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that.
You got attention, though.
Yeah. I got everybody's attention. So I'm just going to summarize. The vast majority of the policies were updates regarding Neola or just changes to names and whatnot. The employee handbook updates included changes to language regarding health insurance incentives, funeral leave for miscarriages, and the addition of MLK Day and a personal day. The changes will come to the full board for approval in June, so they can be in effect as of July 1st. We also reviewed Policy 5451, which had been sent back regarding the Wisconsin Academic Excellence Scholarship. This policy was revised for tiebreakers being 1, the first, the ACT composite score, 2, total credits earned, and 3, academic credits earned. So I had not been on this committee when this policy came up, but apparently we did have a tie for the Wisconsin Academic Excellence Scholarship, so we now have some policy in place to break a tie. We also reviewed pediculosis, also known as lice, and that one I'm just reporting on because it had come back to the committee after nurses had discussed the committee's concerns about a student returning to a classroom while waiting to be picked up when found to have lice. It was determined that the student would wait in the school office or health office instead of returning to the classroom. So we did come to a resolution on that. There are two that will be coming back to the committee. The first one was 2430 regarding district-sponsored clubs and activities. And I think Mr. Wright would just like a little clarification on how clubs advertise and make sure that it is equal across all schools. And I had asked to pull 2221 special observance days. I had asked Mr. Kamimer to see if it made sense to add Mental Health Awareness Month as part of our calendar. So we will be coming back to visit those. And that is it. Oh, and the next meeting is June 27th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the work that all of you put into making those committees work. It makes a big difference. Next, non-agenda related public forum. We have no one signed up for that, so we will move on to agenda related public forum. A few rules that go along with it. One, clearly state your name and address, the topic you wish to address. If you're acting as a spokesperson for a particular group of individuals, please indicate that group. Two, state clearly and concisely the matter of concern. Remember, your time is allotted to 3 minutes. The use of specific names of district personnel may lead to legal liability. In such instances, please pursue the district's formal complaint process by contacting the superintendent's office at 424-0160 to direct you to the appropriate administrator. And this evening, we have Jennifer Considine.
Good evening, Jennifer Considine, 300 Dale Avenue in Oshkosh. Several months ago, I actually was here before you with several other community members in advocating for the inclusion of a diversity, equity, and inclusion director on the Oshkosh School District leadership team. I know that's one of your agenda items tonight and wanted to speak to it. As a community member and as a parent of children at Oshkosh schools, I want all of our schools to be places where every student and their families feel safe. They feel welcomed and they feel a sense of belonging. Because we all know that those are the things that are precursors to learning. You have to have those first. And I'm excited tonight that the board has the opportunity to approve the hiring of several new executive team members who are going to bring their professional and their lived experiences to the district to make sure the goals of supporting every student are achieved. We all know that our district outcomes don't always measure up with our goals of supporting every student and seeing them be successful. The school board has spoken in the past about opportunity gaps in our district, particularly for students of color. A report released this week, past week by Real Oshkosh, a community group that I have been a part of, draws attention to publicly available data, which shows that all students are being over-disciplined in comparison to statewide averages. These numbers are particularly appalling for Black and brown students who are being suspended or expelled at rates far higher than their white peers at all levels, including, I was surprised to see, at the elementary level as well. And the data is concerning when we read the numbers, but when I picture that each of those numbers is a kid and I read the stories of the families, I'm really appalled. I applaud the generosity and the bravery of the parents and the families and the students who are sharing these stories with us in this report. And their desire to engage the district in conversations on what are the next best steps. Their audacity to believe that we could do better really inspires me. And these parents are helping us, they're helping me to recognize inequities. And so I hope that tonight marks a turning point in which our recognition of these inequities is transformed into responding to them and ensuring that we are actively cultivating equity. I hope that we will see our new district administrators reach out to families and students and engage in conversation about how their safety, belonging, and learning needs can be met in our schools. I hope we will see increased transparency and an approach that embraces restorative justice. I believe that these new hires will foster that community, not just for our Black and brown students, but for all students in the district. And I ask you tonight to support the hiring of our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have the consent resolution agenda. Please remember that we have pulled 7E, F, and 8E and G. Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Second. Carlin.
Carlin? Okay. Call the roll?
Carnes?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Our first pulled resolution is 7E, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Sure. So,
Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, now we can have discussion.
sorry.
That's all right.
This is, again, all a little bit new to me, so I'm learning as we're going here. The reason tonight why I had pulled this specific number on this, not specifically number or letter E, but I think that it's important when, as a board, you know, in the last couple of days, we've received several emails from the community and our constituents, and I think that, you know, we need to be aware and remember that we're here solely because of our constituents and our community. So you know, pulling this number, I think it's important to have a discussion, have some questions answered, and just really talk through this. I to be upfront and honest with you, I am not, you know, really concerned. I mean, this position has been approved by the board prior to, you know, me joining here. And I just think that it's important to have a discussion, you know, have some questions answered for not only ourselves as board members, but also the community. I think that it's really easy for an email to get lost. And I think that this is a really good opportunity to have these discussions publicly. That is my sole reasoning for pulling these items. I do have a few concerns as far as, you know, more specifically, again, letter F, and the hiring of the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. So I really don't have much to say.
Point of order, I think we're on 7E right now. We can't talk about 7F.
Oh,
until we get
excuse
there.
me. Again, sorry about that. This is something that is, you know, new to me. So I guess, can we have a little bit of discussion as to what, I know that there was, you know, information that was sent that there was, I think it was like 31 candidates that had interviewed for this specific position. And I guess I'm just curious, and I'm sure the community is as well, what specifically stood out for Mr. Miller versus any other candidate that we had.
Yeah, thank you. So I can speak to his you know, qualifications, and I think what sticks out. So one is certainly I think representation matters in this you know, in this position. I think he clearly outlined, you know, between his lived experience, his experience at UW Oshkosh, and now his professional experience both in the Appleton Area School District and at Fox Valley Tech, has really shown, you know, what I feel is his perseverance and his commitment to education for not only himself, but his mission of being able to make sure that we're bringing access to all of our students across our system. So that was really core to our process as we're moving forward. We know that this position is going to be critically important as we're reaching out to students and families and community partners who are strong advocates for all of our students, but it's specifically some marginalized groups in our community. And so his experience in being able to you know, work with community members and work with students directly, I think was one thing that also stood out, you know, from my end. Being a communication major for his bachelor's degree, and if you had a chance to see his commencement speech at UWO in 2013, you'll see that public speaking is not an issue, if you will, when you can speak in front of a packed Culf Fieldhouse, and really being able to drive his points home about inspiring others, which I think is an important piece. So I'm really excited, you know, about the opportunity to work with Anthony Miller Jr. As an opportunity I think one of the, a couple other things that I'd like to point out, I think, one is his connection with Fox Valley Tech is going to be a really important asset for us. And as we're looking at an executive team and being able to round out the diversity of experiences in our executive team, like that's a really important point for us to be able to continue to build on. It's one of our key performance indicators to make sure that we can just continue our marks with post-secondary, Fox Valley Tech being an important part. His current position takes kids from orientation to graduation in that process, and his job is to be able to help support students and families in removing barriers for kids to be able to successfully navigate the technical college. That will be a significant asset that we currently do not have directly within our system, and specifically within our executive team. And when we're looking at systematic improvements, he's going to be able to provide some really good assets there. I think also when you're looking at I know part of the question was around his certifications and not having teaching and principal backgrounds. So one of the things that we'll have to adjust is looking at principal supervision. If you remember in my original plan, and this was, I know before Kelly you were on, but in my original plan, we had a principal supervision being divided up between our director of secondary schools and our 2 directors of elementary schools. So I believe we have an adequate plan to be able to help supervise our principals. I think the one thing that that Anthony will provide is that kind of non-institutionalized perspective that I think is really important. Sometimes in K-12 we get too close. We're in this all the time, and when you've had 5, 10, 15, 30 years in some cases in the institution, I think being able to get that outside perspective is going to be really important. So his master's in educational leadership at the post-secondary level and adult learning is going to be a really nice asset, because he'll be doing a lot of the professional development around our equity work, and to be able to reach out to our adult community partners, families, and students as we're coming in. So those are the things for me that rose to the top. We had an extensive process that started with an initial screening group with representation from each level of our organization, followed that up with members from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and then finally with our executive team. So we're really serious about the process and our vetting process. We had a competitive pool, and certainly it wasn't an easy choice, but I think Anthony's affinity also to the Fox River, the Fox Valley, and also to Oshkosh specifically is also really evident, in that he's somebody that's going to stay and be able to really continue to dig in and give deep roots here in Oshkosh. So again, I can't be more excited to bring you that recommendation, about Anthony and his ability to help not only our students and families grow, but also myself, our executive team, and all of our staff. So that's really an important point, I believe.
Can I ask, you had mentioned not having the license for principal supervision. Is that something that's in the works that is probably going to happen down the road? Would that be the
that would
assumption?
be exactly. That would be the next level of development, for him, and there's processes that we can go through to help support that as we're moving forward. But we believe the work right in front of us, right, is being able to work with students and parents to be able to get our, raise our level of engagement and be able to work deeply with our equity teams at our buildings. We believe that work is right in front of us, and that'll be important to partner with the principals, but not necessarily have to supervise right away. So I believe he's going to start July 1st, which is on a Saturday. So actually July 5th, because we're July 3rd is in between the holiday. So technically July 5th we'll hit the ground running in ways that I think are just going to be a significant boost to our ability to serve all families here in Oshkosh.
Any other questions? Oh, Dr. Herzog.
I just wanted to say, I've worked in my professional career here in the district and at UW Oshkosh in teacher licensing and overall educator licensing. And I'm not aware of any license that is specific to a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Similarly, there's no specific license at the state level for someone who serves as a human resources director. It just doesn't exist. But obviously, we have criteria that we set out that we expect people to meet. And based on what Dr. Davis has shared with us on Mr. Miller's background and his his life experiences, his experiences in a K-12 district to the north of us that is larger than we are, and has done this work there, and then his ability to help students transition from the K-12 setting into a post-secondary learning opportunity. I think he sounds like a great candidate. And then when you look at the process that the district used in terms of narrowing down the list of candidates and bringing in people from the district's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, as well as central office, I'm satisfied with the process.
And I would just like to echo a little bit what Barb said and Dr. Davis said. I am very enthusiastic about this choice. I think the process was spot on. I think Mr. Miller is the right person for our district, and I support it wholeheartedly. And sometimes I think, the role of the school board is to oversee policy and a superintendent. We trust Dr. Davis to hire who he feels is the right person for the job. So he definitely has my support with this candidate. I'm excited, and I think it's long overdue, and I can't wait for June 5th when he starts. Thank you.
July 5th. Yeah.
July 5th, my bad. July 5th, thank you.
Thank you. Perfect comment. Any other?
I guess since we're on the topic, I think it's a good opportunity for, this position's going to help individuals or students in our school district that have learning disabilities and our second language learners. I was wondering if you could take a second to speak to that. So I think that's important for the community to know that this position is going to be trying to break down a lot of different barriers.
Yeah, so that'll certainly be part of the process, is to be able to meet with our directors of our ESOL program. We have a lot of students with refugee backgrounds, and understanding the obstacles that comes with that. So it'll be important for Anthony to be able to get that background. And again, I believe that the translation from his work at Fox Valley Tech in this realm is going to be really important. Understanding barriers and how do you remove barriers in an educational setting. Being able to translate that to a K-12 setting, I think, will be an easy translation for him. And as importantly for us, again, as we're looking at our KPIs, to be able to make sure that our students and our families have their eyes on the horizon too, about what opportunities, especially when you're new to the country, having all those opportunities aren't necessarily, part of your, family tradition and legacy. So becoming familiar with that, and to have a person who can literally walk in the door, know everybody's name at Fox Valley Tech, and be able to get resources, both financial resources, academic resources, cultural support resources at Fox Valley Tech, at UW Oshkosh, I think it's literally life-changing for many of our students and families coming up.
I just have one more question in regards to this. I know that, as a board, we really value input from not only the community, our constituents, one another, teachers and staff. And I think that one of the concerns that will come forward, or maybe it has and we just haven't been made aware, within the job description of this position, it specifically states overseeing principals. And I think maybe I'm a little bit concerned, have we reached out to any of our principals to see, or get their input on this? I think when you have a position with salary, as this one is listed, and then you have people at the, on the battleground essentially doing the work, and then you have somebody coming in that doesn't necessarily have the qualifications or that experience.
Sorry to interrupt. I think Dr. Davis explained that wouldn't be part of the position right now, that they would be.
Yeah, but I can reference, so, and as late as today, talking with a principal, and actually, she was relieved to hear that, because she believes that the work for this position to be able to dig deeply in with their equity teams, looking at both the academic data and the social emotional data, is going to be important. So for this person, not necessarily at this point to be able to do supervision, but will free up some time to be able to get at some of those kind of issues that we have internally is a positive. So again, is that across the board? I'm sure there's differing opinions, but that's something that we're continuing to to monitor, to help support, because our principals are very important, for the success of our district as we're moving forward.
Did that answer your question, Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments? Okay. Call the roll.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
DeWitt?
No.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay. Next item up is 7F, Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second. So moved by Carlin, second by Szilagyi.
Okay. Open for discussion.
Sure, so I'll take it again here. Again, the reason why I pulled this item, this was my again, main reason for wanting to pull this. I, again, think that it's very important to be able to have a discussion in regards to this. Again, as I had stated, we as a board have received numerous emails from community members and constituents expressing their concern. And I think that it's very important to remember, again, why we're sitting here, and to completely dismiss those concerns and not have an open discussion. I think that we would be doing a complete disservice to not only our community, our students, but as well as our constituents. I do have a few concerns in regards to the individual with this position. I know that, I've received, numerous contact attempts as far as folks expressing their concerns. In fact, just before I came here, I received a voicemail from someone, encouraging me to just bring this to light. I think that first and foremost, we need to, really question again how many candidates were interviewed for this position. I wasn't made aware of how many or who or what the process was. I know that it was, open and posted. But again, how did we get to the conclusion that Mr. Coleman is in fact the best candidate for this position? Looking at some of the, complaints or concerns that have come forward, how do we know that this is the best for our students, our community?
Sorry to interrupt, but Dr. Davis sent us an email regarding the concerns in the community. So I just want to make sure that it's on record saying that Dr. Davis has communicated with the school board.
With the community?
And with the issues that were raised. He has addressed those. So we have an email that addresses these. If he wants to address some of the concerns publicly, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, of course.
Sure, yeah. I don't know, Kelly, I didn't mean to.
No, I just think that it's important to, again, have these discussions. Sure. I think that the community is owed that in a sense, right? And what better position and way to do that than here.
I was just correcting that you said I don't have any information. That's all I was saying, is that you don't have any information about the process and everything, but he did give us a lot of information about the process, but it should be shared publicly.
Yeah, so as we're, there were some concerns that were brought to light. Those certainly were concerns to me. Dr. Coleman I've worked with for 2 years in Shorewood prior to coming to Oshkosh. So the concerns, again, were, for me, were taken seriously. Were inconsistent from what I know from his performance in working with him. So that allowed me to have an opportunity to, one, talk with him, and two, probably most importantly, be able to dig down with his references, both in Shorewood, who I know intimately, people in Shorewood, and then also in his current position as out in Virginia. And so again, I wouldn't bring him forward if there wasn't concerns around resolution on those concerns and his performance. So he is a candidate that rolls to the top, I think, from his academic experience. So just received his PhD from UW-Madison. Extensive curriculum and instruction experience that he has leading a successful district in Shorewood, and his ability to, and his background to be able to facilitate specifically in our ICS for Equity work, which he does from a consulting standpoint, really makes him a complete candidate that I think right now is a good match for us here in Oshkosh. I believe we're lucky to have him be able to help lead us on the instructional side. Certainly, as you would go back and look at school board tapes or recordings that would be back in Shorewood last June in 2022. You'd be able to see the last time that he addressed the school board in Shorewood to make sure. One of my concerns was, is this a situation where it was, a situation where he was forced out? That is clearly not the case from watching that board recording and talking to the references that I talked to, again, both in Shorewood and beyond. So this is a strong candidate who is ready to dig in our processes here in Oshkosh. Again, has gone through a vetting process at all levels of our organization, has done some school visits, has met with our executive team, and we're really excited to be able to bring his outside set of eyes to be able to get a refresh and look at our instructional leadership, and be able to have the good fortune to be able to work with directors that we have here with a lot of institutional knowledge to be able to move things forward. So again, I'm excited to be able to work with Dr. Coleman as we're moving forward. Again, I acknowledge those concerns, and certainly those are things that that I needed to be able to come to terms with prior to any recommendation that I would make. I certainly wouldn't make this in a lighthearted way. So this is, there's nothing more serious for us, especially on the instructional side, related to our progress in literacy and math. I believe his experience, both personally and professionally, will provide that leadership that we need as we're moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yep.
Liz had her hand up.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that while it's true we have received some emails from constituents with concerns, my tally is that we received 2, and we also received an email in favor, and then someone this evening spoke in favor too. It's hard for us as school board members to know exactly where the community lies on each of these votes that we make, and it's not really our job to survey the community and vote based on that, because we are not a direct democracy. We're a republic, and the community has voted for us to make these decisions. And as Ms. Carlin stated, our role really is policy and overseeing the superintendent. And I trust Dr. Davis, and I support your decision for these hires. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Mrs. Carlin.
A few years ago, and Liz, Dr. Herzog and Mrs. Salaji can help me with this, but we adopted a policy on the board that says we do not respond to anonymous.
Yes, I've been searching that as we
I was searching for it today too. So we do have a policy that says we do not respond to anonymous emails or letters, and that is because they're anonymous. We cannot verify them. So we put that into policy a few years ago because we had been getting a lot of anonymous things that people thought were true, and if it's anonymous, it's not something that we review. That is a board policy that we adopted. The other thing I wanted to say is that yesterday, I appreciated that Dr. Davis sent us all an email that had copied and pasted some of the concerns from people that had raised issues about this candidate, and I appreciate that he did that because it clearly outlined, here was the concern, here is what happened, here is the concern, here is, etc. So I thought that that was very helpful in going through some of these issues that people had sent to us. This is my 7th year on the board, and I cannot recall a time when 2 candidates put forth by administration has been so deeply scrutinized. And I don't know what that means, but I think that it is a profound fact. Why were these two candidates so deeply scrutinized? Why are people getting so upset over these two candidates when we have hired a number of teachers and administrators over time that have not raised any concerns? So I don't know what that means, but I think it is very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, not shocking or disturbing, but it's just, it's there. What does that mean? And so I'm asking that a question to our community. Why are we scrutinizing these two people so deeply? Thank you.
Mr. Kearns.
Kelly, I'm happy that you pulled both of these items for tonight. I think it is important that we have conversations and real conversations, and the public can hear what we're thinking. I want people's voices to be heard. I'm glad you brought up the anonymous. I read every email that comes through. To the person who called me tonight and wanted to talk, I apologize for not being able to talk. But I want people to know that they're being heard. And that might go against what I'm going to vote, but it's important that everyone's voice is heard. We've had real conversations regarding a number of issues. It is not as simple as it's 7-0 and we're not even talking. If people have watched the board meetings over the last 2 years, we've had some real good conversations. And that's important for the public and for us to have. At the end of this, I very simply agree with Ms. Carlin and others that I look to Dr. Davis and I ask you, is this the best candidate for the job? And you have told me repeatedly, absolutely. So from that standpoint, I trust you, because as we've talked about, our job is policy and it's the superintendent. And if we don't like the job you're doing, we have twice a year where we sit down and we chat about that. But to say that we don't like one of your choices is a difficult precedent to set, to say that we're trying to circumvent the superintendents and all of the process that you guys have gone through to do what you've done and come through this candidate. You didn't go there wanting somebody to win. You put it out there, people applied, these were the people that came, and to stay just on this one, this person came to the top. And so I appreciate the community feedback. I welcome it. I want more of it. I want to know what people are thinking. But there's also a lot of people who didn't reach out, and a lot of people who didn't reach out and say that they're in support of it. And in my opinion, usually we hear the people who are not in support, and as Liz had said, there was very few. And so that is also telling in some sense. So either way, I support this. I'm going to vote yes for it. I'm glad that we had the conversation. I thank you for pulling it and taking us down that path.
Mr. Wright.
I'm glad that these items have been pulled as well. I think it's important to note this job isn't always easy. We listen all the time, everywhere. You know, I don't think I can go to a community event, even a neighborhood event, without people talking to me, you know, all the time about different school board related activities. And we listen, but at the end of the day, we have to make decisions. And they're not always easy decisions. And that's part of the job. Oshkosh is a great community. Oshkosh is a community with all kinds of different opinions, all kinds of different ideas, and it's our job to listen and then to try to pick, with all the information we have, to try to make the best decision for this community to move forward. I believe that people make mistakes. If every person in OASD or any organization in this city had all of their personal text messages taken, I don't know how many of us or how many people would be totally employed throughout the area. So I believe that people make mistakes, and I'm a big believer in allowing for people to learn from those mistakes. And I'm a believer in the fact that the candidate has gone through a process. And I believe that that process will result in better results for our students and community. So those are my thoughts, and thank you.
Dr. Herzog. Thank you. It's always interesting to me when people say, we sent an email, or we talked to you, or we sent you something to read, and you didn't listen, or you didn't read. I think what they're really saying is you didn't side with me on whatever that issue was. But that doesn't mean we didn't take seriously the emails that we received, or the conversations we've had in the grocery store, or in the neighborhood, or wherever that is. But ultimately, we have to make a decision, because the community is typically not united around one way of looking at something. There are many ways of looking at just about everything that comes to this table. And so we do listen, we do read, we do contemplate, we do look at policy, which is one of our main roles as a board. Another main role of the board is to determine what. We determined that the what was that we wanted a diversity, equity, and inclusion person. We also wanted the 2 assistant superintendent positions that were established. That's where our role ends. It's up to administration to determine the how, and what they do is they follow policy, or they follow past procedure on what is the process of selection. So typically, administration doesn't tell us how many people applied, or how did they answer a particular question. That's not the board's role. Our role is the what, not the how. And the how is the process of the selection, including how many references are called and what they said. That's not our role. That's the administration role. As was stated earlier by either Mr. Carnes or Mr. Wright, I lost track. Our job also is to supervise and evaluate the superintendent. And if any employee does not work out, then Dr. Davis needs to bring that to the board for further attention or for a recommendation. Our role is largely governed by our own policies, which are our rules, and by state law. And that's what we need to follow. So as long as administration has followed those, and we don't believe there's any violation of either of those, then our role typically will support what the administration recommends. Are we a rubber stamp? No. Are we trusting? Do we need a trusting relationship? Do we need a good relationship among board members to function effectively? Yes, we do. Because what happens in this boardroom has an impact on what happens in the classrooms. And so we need to be people of integrity and honesty, and people who are trustworthy. And so those are the things that I strive for, and I believe all the rest of you do as well.
Thank you, Barb. That's well said.
Thank you. Okay, to wrap this up, I just want to say everyone has been wonderful in their discussions and all the points that they brought to the table tonight. I am so appreciative of this board, their openness. They're willing to think outside of the box, and they're willing to give trust to a superintendent who has given us no reason not to trust him at this point.
Absolutely.
Call the roll.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
DeWitt?
No.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Solagi?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay. Moving on to 8E, reduction in staff. Motion?
So moved.
Second? Sorry. Go ahead. No.
It was Carlin and Wyman. Carlin said motion.
Well, I guess I just had a few questions. They're essentially E and G are both the same. They're both listed under here as reduction in staff.
We need to keep E as E and G as G.
Okay. Well, E and G, and which are the same thing. And I know that this was presented in a workshop or previously discussed in meetings, but I just, could you maybe just clarify and give a little bit of a background as to what we're reducing here? Is this a reduction in staff? Because I think that it's important for the community, again, to have all of the facts and have all of the information here as to what, we recently just approved 2 new positions, essentially, and then we're now taking a vote on reduction in staff.
So this is a vote to update the policy. So it's just sharing with you, so for the first one, E, 3131 is for professional staff, so our teachers. So you are correct that both policies are essentially the same. The next is for support staff. So it's just sharing with us the changes recommended by, as Ms. Carlin shared, Neola. So the first recommendation is to provide flexibility with the plan. So as we're looking for the district's need, we look to that flexibility to be in the plan for the superintendent if we're going through that reduction based on the needs of the district. And then the other recommended change, if you have the policy in front of you, sentence 3 and sentence 5 essentially are redundancy. So we're just looking to remove the second one to remove that redundancy. So it's not saying we're in a reduction, it's just updating our policy if we were to see that put into place.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions with that? Call the roll.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Salati?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And the next one, 4131, reduction in staff. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Carlin and Salaji. Any discussion?
I don't have anything on this. My stuff was answered, so sorry about that.
That's okay. Call the roll.
Carlin?
Aye.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Salati?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Next item, request for future agenda items. Mrs. Carlin?
Okay, so I know that one of our future agenda items already slated for August is to talk about our suspension program, et cetera, et cetera. And I would like to propose that we move this up. And I'm not sure if that's possible, but in light of some of the press that was recently came out, I feel like waiting to have this discussion until August is too long. However, that said, I just learned tonight our new DEI will be July 5th.
Correct.
But I would like to see us have a workshop or something to address some of these concerns that have been raised. And I don't want to make more work for Dr. Davis and his team. I know, I see the big eyes right now because I am asking for a lot.
No,
But I feel like, to Ms. DeWitt's point earlier, that our community is really reaching out to us about these topics. And are we doing everything we can to connect with them, answer their questions, work with them? That's where I'm going with this. And this is not the board's job per se, but as an oversight, as an overseeing entity, giving guidance on this issue.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I just kind of threw out a lot there.
Yeah, the reason why we have it in August is so we can land the plane for this school year and have our administrators being able to do some data collection and some analysis, and that usually takes place in June. July is usually a spot where we need to unplug a little bit and be able to gather ourselves, and so August was set up specifically for that time for a workshop, so we'd be able to collectively discuss with our principals and our directors as we're moving forward with some action plans for the upcoming year. So that's the why, I think, behind August. I think this year, especially with new directors coming on, I think be able to get again another set of eyes on that analysis, I think would be beneficial. My personal opinion would be that would be beneficial to be able to keep that in August as we're moving forward.
Okay.
And that's the why behind it.
Yeah, that does make sense. So I guess I will withdraw my future agenda item for next month, and we can keep it in August. I'm just looking for a way to respond to some of the concerns, as you know. So I'm making sure we're being proactive and listening and all that stuff. But I do understand the August deadline now, so I'm fine with that.
Okay, any other future agenda items? All right. Seeing none, any announcements? Mr. Carn?
Yes, I will start. I'm wearing my Care Days shirt. So, went to Care Days this year, so that was the first time, so incredible event. If any of board members have not been to it, I would highly recommend it.
That's great.
And then every staff member that resigns or moves on, we are definitely going to miss them. I am going to give a special shout out to one in particular, Corey Kleinhans. Did I say that right? I wrecked your moment. He ran the Adaptive Sports League and was very instrumental in a lot of that. And so when I heard the news that he was leaving, it was very disappointing because he did an absolutely outstanding job. I did hear that there is a new person coming in that may be exceptional as well, but people like that are, sad to lose them. So I just wanted to give him a special shout out. So Corey's done great. So
It's very nice.
thank you.
Yes.
I want to give a shout out to Oshkosh West softball. They'll be playing tomorrow to go to state.
Woohoo.
So
That's
go West.
Could you tell us where and when?
Not if I don't go on my phone. I
West-
don't want to violate. I don't want to violate that.
No,
policy.
I don't wanna
West
violate
Bend,
that
so they're
policy.
playing at West Bend West at 4:30. And they're playing Watertown, so.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Yep.
Oh, Wildcats.
Mrs. Lodgy?
You know, I do actually have a future agenda request. Should I wait till the next meeting? Did I miss my shot?
Would you like to announce?
Announcement request. There's my announcement. It's hot today. So I am wondering about our policy around inclement weather when it's really hot, and we have a lot of particularly elementary buildings that do not have air conditioning. I personally have had a child that threw up in school for heat exhaustion.
Oh, no.
So I'm assuming I'm not the only one. Maybe my kid's just the one fluke. But so I wonder what our policy is around that, and maybe what it should be. Maybe if we don't have one, what is the recommendation for when a school building reaches 90 degrees and
Yep.
there's 700 kids in there?
Facilities?
Do we want to route that to policy and governance?
Yeah, that'd be
Or
great.
facilities, it's kind of both.
I mean, yeah, we don't have all 80, 90-year-old buildings. They'd have
Right.
ACs. They'd have AC. So
Okay, we can't talk.
Can't discuss.
Okay, my announcement is, thank you to all the board members for being so wonderful at all of the graduations and presenting so beautifully. And thank you to the parents and the students and friends of all of those graduates. Behavior was unbelievable. It was festive. It was celebratory, and I really appreciated being a board member for those two events.
Amen.
Thank you.
It was a good week.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Oh, that's in Salaji. I beat you.
All in favor? Aye. Marvelous.